Hi YouTube, welcome back. I hope you're having a great week so far. This week's topic is a big one, and I feel like if more people had a strategy when they feel like this, they would have more successful attempts at whatever body composition journey they are on. And it is essentially what to do when you're not making progress. And I guess there's a few bits to this. So firstly, how to know you're not making progress categorically rather than just kind of a feeling of not being where you're wanting to be or expecting things to happen quicker than they are. And also to give you some genuine strategies as to what it is you need to do if you do find that progress has definitely stalled. And I'm going to try and cover what to do if your goal is fat loss, what to do if your goal is muscle growth, so that hopefully this fits regardless of what your body composition goal is. So I'm going to start with fat loss and dieting in general, because I feel like, honestly, that's the one I get the most questions about. And really the most common thing that I'll hear is, I've started a deficit, I've not seen any progress, I'm tracking everything that I'm eating, and the scale just isn't moving. Now, in my experience, what people tend to do is go straight to, I know, I'll drop my calories a little bit more. But I would urge you to do a few things before you run straight to, can I just eat a bit less? And look, it might be that a calorie drop is what you need, but please, for the love of God, go through this checklist first, because nobody wants to eat less than they need to. Okay, first one, have you given it enough time? And are you tracking your progress regularly? So when it comes to weight loss and rates of weight loss, this is going to vary pretty largely from person to person, depending on your start point, your current weight and body composition. Someone in a bigger body with more weight to lose may experience a faster rate of fat loss than someone who has less body fat to lose. We would usually put it in a ballpark of somewhere between 0.4 kilos to a kilo per week, or just under a pound to just over 2 pounds. So when we think about that range, what we want to make sure that we're not doing is hopping on the scales one morning, noticing that we're a kilo up compared to where we were yesterday, and immediately jumping to the conclusion that we are not losing fat. We should know that scale weight fluctuates, and it can do so pretty wildly from one day to the next. So what we want to be doing is tracking that weight more often than once a week. Ideally, we want to be doing it every day, first thing in the morning before you've eaten or drunk anything, or at a minimum every 3 to 4 days, so that we can actually see what a normal fluctuation range is for any one person. I've worked with women who can fluctuate up to 3 kilos, depending on where they are in the month, what food they've eaten, how badly they've slept, how their stress levels are. It really can fluctuate by a lot. I know personally that my fluctuation range is roughly 2 kilos. So just hopping on the scales once a week isn't really going to tell me anything about what's happening over time and what that trend actually looks like. Instead, it's more likely to tell me that I had a really heavy leg day yesterday, so that I've got lots and lots of water and glycogen within my muscles. Maybe I ate more salt and carbs than I did the day before, and I'm due on my period when I see that higher scale weight. So track your weight every day. If nothing, and I mean nothing, has happened for 2 weeks, you can probably safely assume that you are not in a deficit. The other one is something no one wants to hear, but is so common, and it's, are you being consistent with your tracking? If you're using tracking as a tool to help you with fat loss, then you want to be all in. We don't want to be treating Monday to Thursday as a completely different version of reality than Friday to Sunday. If we're only logging for 4 days out of the 3 and just eyeballing from Friday through Sunday, then you probably are going to have a bit of an issue with sticking to that deficit. Again, averages are helpful here. Calories don't work on a 24-hour clock. You want to look at what you're consuming across a weekly period on average. Loosely tracking things or skipping things where you're taking the odd bite here or the odd handful of this there really does add up over time. Alcohol counts, sauces count, oils count. It really does need to be captured. You can't manage what isn't measured. You're also going to want to check on things like your movement in general. Particularly if you've been dieting for a while, people can often find that that general movement tends to drop off, and it's often subconscious. So it's worth asking yourself, has that naturally just kind of dropped off a little bit since I've started dieting? Meaning that that energy out bucket is a little bit less full, meaning the deficit is not being created in the same way that it was before. And are you looking at other measures of progress? Are you tracking your lifts in the gym? Are you capturing some progress pictures? Are you taking body measurements? All of these things can be helpful, particularly if you're someone who's new to lifting. You may well be building some muscle. That's going to weigh something. So be sure that you're not just putting everything on that scale weight as your main measure of progress, and that you're capturing other markers too. So let's say, hypothetically, you've seen no changes to body weight, to measurements, to progress pictures. You're 100% consistent with the way that you're tracking and how accurately you're logging things. It's been 2 weeks of absolutely zero movement downwards on that scale. Then at that point, you may want to entertain making that deficit a little bit bigger. And remember, you can do that in one of two ways. Yes, you can drop your food intake, but you could also consider adding in another 30 minutes of cardio across your week, increasing your steps by 2,000 to 3,000, adding in an extra gym session. Energy out matters too. And obviously it's going to depend on you and your circumstances, but personally, I would much rather move a little bit more if my diary allows me to than eat less. And again, when we are thinking about dropping calories, it does not need to be by hundreds and hundreds. Think about adjusting by just 5%, testing against that, making sure you're super consistent. And if the scale starts moving down, you're in the sweet spot. We don't want to overshoot this because it really does so often lead to you going too far the other way after a prolonged period of restriction because you're just like, I can't do this. When it comes to muscle growth, our expectations need to be even more lenient because that shit takes time. I mean months rather than weeks. So firstly, get that in check. Like, just get in your mind that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a couple of weeks. You're going to want to be looking at your progress on a much larger scale. And really the main thing that you can be sure of when it comes to, am I building muscle, is, am I getting stronger? And I don't just mean I've just stepped into the gym for the first time. I've been training for the last 6 weeks, but this is completely new to me. Last week I could lift 6 kilos. This week I can lift 8. It's unlikely that's down to a substantial growth in muscle, and more so you just finding out where your limits are and learning to push past them. It's going to be down to you increasing your training knowledge, getting a bit more confident, learning to nail your form. All of that is obviously great. But if you're someone who's been training for 2-3 years, and you know you've got all of the basics right in terms of exercise selection and execution, then seeing your lifts increase over weeks and months is a surefire sign that you're building muscle mass that you did not have before. You want to make sure you're choosing objectively good movements for hypertrophy. Generally speaking, these are stable exercises that you can move well in, that you're confident with, that you can really build your strength in. You want to make sure you're getting enough volume, which based on current research suggests anywhere north of 10 working sets per muscle group per week. And you want to be allowing for some specific recovery time. And by recovery, I mean sitting on your ass. If you like an ice bath, you like a massage gun, more power to you. But really, we're talking about doing nothing, spending time out of the gym and taking your recovery pretty seriously. The final bit of that puzzle is that you are going to need to eat more than 50 grams of protein a day. Take your body weight in kilos, times it by 2. That is the amount of grams of protein you should be shooting for each day. If you're doing that, just buckle up and enjoy the ride because it's going to take time. Use your progress pictures. Honestly, throw away the scales because if your goal is muscle growth, they're telling you nothing, and get as strong as you possibly can, period. So aside from the actual specifics of what is happening when it comes to your goal of fat loss or your goal of muscle growth, there are also some things you're going to want to consider to make sure you're giving yourself the best chance of making the progress that you want to make. And these are more about kind of mindset and attitude. So firstly, do you have a clear goal and a clear strategy? So if you do not know exactly what you're working towards and what milestones you need to be ticking off on a daily basis in order to get you there, it is impossible for a coach or even for yourself to provide a relevant plan in order to get you to said result. If you do have clear goals and a strategy to get you there, then you probably don't need a new plan every 5 minutes. You just need a bit more patience. A lot of people are really quick to change their approach the second they get a hint that it's not working. So you've got to be really sure that firstly, what you're doing is working and is moving you forwards towards the goal that you have. You also need to give it time. If you're constantly chopping and changing between deficit, maintenance, muscle building, you're really not giving yourself the best chance of getting anywhere. I'd also highly recommend that whatever your goal is, you make it meaningful. Because if you don't care about it, how successful are you going to be at it? This is why I am so passionate about having goals outside of just fat loss. Fat loss is fine. Fat loss is great. It can be super empowering to get yourself to a position where you feel really, really confident in your physique. But you know what else is empowering? Setting the odd performance goal and reaching those. Maybe it's your first pull-up, your first push-up, to squat your body weight, whatever it is, just have some. Maybe it's being able to run around with your children or pick up your cabin bag and shove it in the overhead locker like it's nothing. These things just carry a little bit more weight than I want toned arms. I do also want to talk about motivation for a sec, because everyone talks about how you don't need motivation, you just need more discipline. But low motivation is often a symptom. If you're demotivated, it's often a symptom of you not making any progress. And look, we all have days where we get up and we cannot be arsed. And that's not really what I'm talking about. But if you're feeling like you are in a state of constant lack of motivation, then you're probably just not seeing the progress in any one of those areas that I've just mentioned. So while sometimes you do need to just drag your ass out of bed and get to the gym, even when you don't want to, it's not something you should completely ignore if you're noticing it all the time. Get curious, ask yourself some questions. Where's this feeling coming from? Do I have clear goals? Do they mean something to me? Am I doing the things I need to do to get me there? And am I seeing the results I'm wanting to see as a result of my efforts? If the answer to those is no, you probably want to go back to the drawing board and figure out your what and your why. And this is something that isn't spoken about enough, but I really feel like more people would get better results if they learned to understand the process, not just trust it. For me personally, it's quite literally how I got into fitness as a career. Because I can't just work really hard at something that I don't understand. Really think about engaging yourself in the process, asking questions. Your coach has given you a calorie target. Okay, so how did we get to that target as the right number for me? How does fat loss actually work? And I mean, like the physical process of fat loss, how does it work? I think people are often too quick to just say, give me a plan and I'll follow it. And that's all well and good. But I genuinely think if people spent a bit more time trying to learn and understand some of the basic principles behind things like body composition change, then not only are they going to be more invested in the process and see better progress as a result, but they're going to maintain the results that they've achieved because they actually understand how to do it again. So really, this was just about trying to set some expectations around what progress looks like regardless of your goal, how to measure it, how to manage it, how to know when it's happening, how to know when to push, how to know when to pull back, and just being open and transparent about what it takes to achieve any kind of body composition goal. And hopefully this gave you some food for thought to think about what might be missing if you're not making the progress that you'd set out to make in the first place. And if this sounds like your vibe, my next intake of the Recomp Blueprint starts on Monday, the 1st of September. You've got about 48 hours to get in there before the doors close. You can comment below the word recomp and I'll be in touch if you want to join us. And otherwise, I will see you this time next week. Okay, love you. Bye.